Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you here this morning. It's always a pleasure to be with men and be able to converse with them. The subject that has been chosen for me to speak on affects us all. It is the challenge of change. It's a daunting subject, and at times can be quite frightening. We cannot lightly dismiss it. It's all around us. It's overwhelming. We read it in the newspapers. We watch it on television. And what do we see? New gadgets, instability, bombings and acts of terrorism, home invasion, carjacking, road rage, one-punch assaults, unemployment, drug trafficking that is filling the prisons to overflowing. And despite the gun laws, we still have shootings, stabbings, and savage acts of violence. Some people are even suggesting that we are being invaded by illegal migrants threatening to change the culture of this nation. And to top it all off, we have a new kid on the block with the grand title, Political Correctness, which is stupefying as it is ridiculous. You be careful what you say. You may be sued for speaking the truth. It's now become objectionable even to have an opinion. And strange as it seems, we have some things that are contradictory. We can phone an organisation to stop us from committing suicide, yet there is another group that will assist us if we want to. And we've been presented with what is called the new morality, which includes same-sex marriage, homosexuality, abortion on demand, and lesbianism, which begs the question, do we now have before us a modern-day reenactment of Sodom and Gomorrah? You know, when you stop and think about it, we Christians, we're a soft target. We don't retaliate, yet there are still those who focus on a few ratbags that are pedophiles as examples to criticise and attack us, all the while ignoring the indisputable fact that if all the Christian churches with their helps and institutions in Australia were to close their doors and shut down their activities tomorrow morning, then our entire national economy would collapse and be in chaos within 90 days. They make fun of us, seek to change laws that hurt us, misrepresent us, and ignore our moral codes as being out of date and obsolete. Yet great anthropologists, including J.D. Unwood and others, after an intense study of 88 civilizations, all came to the same conclusion. That is, if any society degrades marriage, womanhood, family, and has an absence of a moral code, has a limited time frame for its very existence. Well, it seems to me that in this day and age we are more tempted to talk in terms of social justice rather than the ultimate justice of God. And in turn, we turn to the state as a mechanism for righting the wrongs of the world. It's lunacy. We become so arrogant. We boast about controlling the atmosphere, saving the trees, saving the whales, saving the planet, and we haven't even learned to care for each other. Now, I'm a student of history. The world has been through many changes and upheavals. The great General MacArthur, in his study of military history, says there's been a major or minor war every 2.5 years since the beginning of time. And a future glimpse into the world history reminds us of past diseases, famines, economic catastrophes, floods, earthquakes, firestorms, tsunamis, shortages, abundances, nuclear waste, brilliance, perverted science, discoveries, and at times the stupidity of man. You know what, gentlemen? We're still here. And what we need is a good dose of clarity, humility, and perspective, and to understand that the crazy world that we have before us, this too will pass. We're going through a disconnect, a phase, a fashion of the times we live in. The pendulum of reason is out of whack. We've misplaced our moral compass. There appears to be a search for meaning, a search for experience, a search for justification. We've even sought longevity, and now we are living longer. We can't find anything constructive to do with our time. And there are those who want to switch off life support when they want to exit. And as behaviour worsens, the community adjusts its standards so that conduct once thought to be reprehensible is no longer recognised as such. And some people feel that we're travelling at a supersonic speed back into the dark ages. We're searching for answers in the wrong places, for the wrong reason, and seeking for an unknown result. Is there any wonder why we are finding it difficult to cope? I mean, the days of simple word cliches like, "She'll be right, mate." They sound good and they run easily off the tongue, but they're useless today. It's come to the point that we're more afraid of life than death. And yet somehow we still wish to remain static because it makes us feel safe. Maybe, just maybe, you feel like a wandering unit with no place to hide. You know, there really is a difference between feeling trapped and choosing to stay defeated and rejected. We must not allow the disappointment of the past or the fear of the future to corrupt the present. Wake up. We are not yet at the death rattle in the throat of a dying civilization. And if you could kick the person in the pants who is responsible for most of your present trouble and anxiety, you wouldn't sit down for a week. You really have two lives. The one we see and the one inside we don't see that's trying to get out to resist. Get back to basics. Your life is your own. No apologies or excuses. No one to lean on, rely on, or blame. And since man's basic tool for survival is his mind, instead of considering a rehab clinic for stupidity, we need to consider the ancient white words in Proverbs 23:7, where it states, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." And we begin to get the picture from God's point of view. We are what we think about. Now here we are in this dramatic period of change, grasping at straws. We're quivering, trying to find an escape exit instead of responding with affirmative action and a take-charge attitude that puts you back in control with proven practical choices. And this morning I want to suggest to you that there are at least 10 confident steps you can use to move forward during this challenge of change. And the first one is, recognize that God is the provider and the stabilizer. Let's get back to basics. Recognize that God is the provider and the stabilizer. God met Abraham's need on Mount Moriah, and he will meet yours. You're trying to adjust to things that are in conflict with biblical truth or trying to remain neutral? It won't work, fellas. Silence gives consent. It's amazing to me how many so-called Christian men lock God out of their financial affairs, while at the same time they're pleading for him to direct and protect their family and resources. And if you are doing that, I'm here to inform you that you are robbing yourself of the wisdom and protection of heaven. Stop trying to go it alone. God is committed to your development. The second principle is quite obvious. Keep your mind on the things you want and off the things you don't want. Concentrating on possible disaster distorts your thinking. It paralyzes your will. It prohibits those measures required for success. By nature, we tend to be negative. And negativism dishonors God. but it also sabotages your own best interest. You know, in the book of the Philippians, it provides good advice when it says, whatever things are good, whatever things are true, whatever things are honest, whatever things are pure, whatever things are a good report, whatever things are praiseworthy, think on these things. Get your act together. Start thinking positive. Be nice to people, particularly on the way up. You meet the same people on the way down. And remember that courtesy and good manners will open doors that money and power will not. Get your spirit right. Now let's go on to number 3. Invest in what you want. If you give love, you'll receive back love. If you exhibit hatred, guess what? You're going to get back hate. If you invest in your brain, you might just get smart. So whatever you invest in, you expect to get a return on that investment. Isn't that right? My favourite Bible verse is Luke 6:38, where it says, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, overflowing. There's going to be a little bit of wastage. Invest on what you want, but to achieve, you must first attempt. Number 4, invest on the front end. Fear petrifies us. Doubt clouds our vision. Unbelief fogs our mind. How many times have people come to me for financial advice and said years later, I would be much better off today if I'd listened to you and invested on the front end. If you don't do that, that's like standing before a fireplace and expecting to get warm before you put some wood on. You see, if you have not tried, you have failed already. Keep focused and you'll increase your energy. Number 5, be patient. You may encounter many problems before you reap your harvest. Most people succeed, have an urgency in the doing, but they tend to construct their lives for the long term. They work towards a plan and discipline their lives, and they understand the necessity and the rewards of delayed gratification. You want it now, but sometimes you have to wait. Number 6, don't be deterred by an occasional failure. I had several failures before I had my first success, but I maintained my reputation and my character because I kept my commitment. And when a farmer plants a crop and his harvest is destroyed, what does he do? He makes a fresh start the next season. Failure, if analysed widely, can be used as a stepping stone towards success. And if you've failed, get over how much it hurt you, but rather ask yourself the question, what did it teach me? What did I learn from all this? And get away from regrets. They're simply paying interest on past mistakes. Get over it. Get over it, gentlemen, and there you'll find your manhood. 7, put on a happy face. Put on a happy face. I admit it, when we're weighed down with concerns, it's not easy to be enthusiastic. But behavioural scientists tell us that motivation comes with a sense of the future. Not long ago, I was to have some very uncomfortable medical treatment. Boy, it was going to hurt. And there I was on the operating table with minimal sedation. The doctor asked me, he said, why are you smiling so much? I told him I was focusing on how much better I was feeling when all this will be over. I put a smile on the nurse's and the doctor's face. On another occasion, I was about to take my place at an international board meeting, and I was being seated opposite the wealthiest man in the room, who looked so glum and downcast it caused me to say to him, Bob, are you happy? He immediately responded with a grumpy, of course I am. I said, well, get the message to your face. The whole boardroom, including Bob, fell apart in laughter. Always try to lift the mood of the people you're with, and you'll be welcomed anywhere. When I get discouraged, I sit down and I refresh myself. I go through my Bible and I refresh myself with the things that have gone well in my life. And as soon as I can, I seek an opportunity to bless someone that's doing it tough. And if that doesn't work, I take out Fox's Book of Martyrs and I read through that, and I'm a shouting optimist within the hour. Principle number 8, build in reserves. Now, there are many things I've learned over the years and put into practice that have been helpful. But as a mechanism to combat change and to remove many of the concerns of the future and the anxieties of the present and still be able to remain confident in situations of uncertainty, you need to be prepared for the unexpected happenings. I was in Russia some time ago, and I was out to lunch with some very, very learned theologians. They were going through the story of the wise virgins who trimmed their lamps. They got into the Greek, and they were just going on and on and on, and I said, oh, for goodness sake, stop this rubbish and let's just enjoy our meal. They said, this is a very interesting story. I said, it's a business story. They said, how is it a business story? I said, if you've got reserves, you go to the party. Think about it. The 5 wise virgins who prepared went to the party. And if you're smart, then you need to maintain reserves, time reserves, mental reserves, friend reserves, financial reserves, physical reserves, and sometimes when it's uphill all the way and nothing makes any sense anymore, you need a personal relationship with the Saviour. You need spiritual reserves. Number 9, give God the glory. Give God the glory. In these troubled times, we need to come to a fresh understanding and gratitude towards God's goodness. Whatever changes are taking place around us now, why not reflect against all the strife and turmoil the world has endured over the eons of time? And because of some unknown selection process involving the miracle and grace of God, you are here this morning. You're still here. Your seed has survived and your strong lineage has continued uninterrupted down through the centuries where others have simply vanished. Have you ever considered how special you are to still be here? Surely there must be a fleeting thought that goes through your mind at times, like an itch that you can't scratch. The question is, why? Is there something missing? Have you ever considered that you could have been preserved for a time such as this? We need you to stand strong. We need you as examples. Number 10, stand strong. Stand strong. Don't weaken. Be brave. Endure to the end. Insist, resist, persist. Courage is an event, it's not a person. Be bold in your faith without offence. We need strong men to be examples, and when you feel beaten, broken, put down, discarded, can't cope, ignored, useless, and even unloved, you can be assured that the strength you need in your hour of desperation and abandonment is ever near. It's amazing sometimes that a happening of the past can provide answers and inspiration for the reality of now. A long time ago, a man called Augustus Montague was enduring a long walk home through the gorge of Burrington Combe in the Minot Hills in England. It was a long, dreary walk. Unfortunately, he was caught in a huge, unexpected, spontaneous, violent storm. The rivers of water, rock and mud quickly began to increase and overwhelming, threatening his life. He struggled to stay upright as he was buffeted by the force of the hail and the wind pushing him further towards a deep precipice that would take him to his death. And then he was forced upon a large rock that had a space large enough for him to crawl into and obtain protection and safety. while the wind and the storm continued. He was there at that desperate time when he was in need of refuge. While huddled in the gap of that giant rock, he wrote one of the greatest hymns of history. Prince Albert asked it to be played at his deathbed. Years later, the ship SS London en route to Melbourne, Australia, was sinking in the Bay of Biscay. And then the last lifeboat was being pushed from the sinking ship. The voices of over 200 drowning passengers were heard singing it. It was played at the funeral of the Prime Minister of England, William Gladstone. Today, this wonderful hymn is revered at times of tragedy to renew hope and to focus on what really is important to mankind. So when you feel the need to be comforted, protected, or just confused, the words of this great hymn written by a man seeking God's protection in the cleft of a rock 200 years ago may be just what you need today. And this is what he wrote. He said, "Rock of ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. Let the water and the blood from thy riven side which flowed be of sin of double cure. Cleanse me from its guilt and power. While I draw this fleeting breath, when my eyes shall close in death, when I soar to worlds unknown, seek thee on thy judgment throne. Rock of ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee." Gentlemen, may the God we all serve extend your life until your destiny is endured. God bless you. Thank you.